So in this video, I have given the prompt to ChatGPT to reimagine WWE in 1995. Why specifically 1995? Because I think that is one of the lowest points of WWE, not specifically because of, not specifically because of um, the any title reigns or anything like that, but more specifically King of the Ring 1995 and the underwhelming victory of Mabel as King of the Ring champion, and then the proceeding of Mabel challenging Diesel in the main event of SummerSlam 1995, stinking out the joint. I do know that there were other matches. I do know, much like at SummerSlam 1994, when Owen Hart and Bret Hart in the steel cage should have main evented. I could be wrong, but if I'm remembering correctly, I believe SummerSlam 95 was the rematch of Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon in the ladder match. But because I don't think that happened, let me do a quick Google search, because I don't think that happened. At SummerSlam 94, because I don't think both those matches would have had. Yeah, it was SummerSlam 95. I was going to say I don't think both those matches would have happened at the same SummerSlam, those being the rematch with Shawn and Razor and Bret versus Owen. Because then what match would have been the main event? But with that being said, and all that out of the way, let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. And you will jump back. We will jump back once ChatGPT has everything written out and figured out, instead of just watching everything be written out, which I think we are at the point where ChatGPT has everything situated, and their rebook is to save the new generation. The key to fixing the new generation is not turning to the Attitude Era early. The audience in 1995 still wanted colorful characters and clear babyface heels, but they also wanted fresher stars, better wrestling, and less cartoon nonsense, which I completely agree with. I also want to say, most importantly, Mabel cannot win King of the Ring. Keep Bret Hart elite, make Shawn Michaels the clear breakout star early, turn Diesel into a cooler champion instead of the smiling corporate babyface that he was. Create future main eventers instead of pushing heatless gimmicks. Stop relying on the Monster of the Month booking, and make the King of the Ring matter. The first two bullet points are the ones I want to focus on here. Or actually, the first three bullet points are the ones I want to focus on here. First, pointing out that when Diesel became the world champion, he started drifting away from what he was as Shawn Michaels' bodyguard, and why people started getting behind him near the end of his time as Shawn's bodyguard. And then when he became world champion, something clicked to where it wasn't about Diesel being Diesel, it was him being something he wasn't before he became world champion. Like, Diesel was not Kevin Nash. Diesel was trying to be something else. And that's why it didn't work. And also, the reason why it didn't work is because outside of Taker, Bret Hart, and Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash didn't really have the challengers to balance out a believable and credible, like a financially, WWE wasn't built for a guy like Kevin to have a long title run for that amount of time as a babyface. You know what I mean? I think what could have happened is you could have given Kevin that reign, and then maybe halfway point you cut him off at the knees. have him drop it to a baby, like Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart or somebody like that, and then have him turn heel, feeling betrayed by the fans that they chose somebody other than him, and then you have him go back and being the champion as a heel. Bret Hart is already established at this point in 1995. He is already a marquee name in the company because he was made in 1992 beating Ric Flair at the show in Canada when he became the world champion at the end of 1992. And then that feud with Yokozuna is what made Bret Hart step above, and his feud with Owen is what firmly established him in that position as a top star and the guy who could tear down the house. Shawn Michaels was on ascension at this moment in time. He was not an established star. I agree that Shawn was in the tournament. And Shawn should have won the tournament. Not only is he getting organically over, but it's allowing Shawn the opportunity to be the focus without putting him back in the world title picture. It's giving him a direction while he's not challenging for the world title. You know what I mean? And look at what the King of the Ring victories did for Bret Hart. Look at what it did for Owen. The King of the Ring should matter, and it should help get people up to that next upper echelon, not just be looked at as an achievement an interchangeable achievement that anybody could get. But we go back and we start at WrestleMania, at the night after WrestleMania. Diesel retains over Shawn Michaels. Lawrence Taylor still beats Bam Bam. Bret Hart still beats Bob. Taker still beats Kama. But the directions change immediately after. As I mentioned earlier, one of Diesel's biggest problems is they tried to turn Kevin Nash into Hulk Hogan, not Kevin Nash. Diesel needs to become more like Kevin Nash. More aggressive, more cool locker room leader, less golly gee promos. He starts calling out fake tough guys, cartoon gimmicks, management favorites. It freshens up Diesel. Get rid of him just being that smiley, happy-go-lucky babyface. That say your just wait, you. At this point, you could have imagined Diesel saying, "Say your vitamins, say your vitamins, say your prayers and take your vitamins," like Hogan used to. Make Diesel more like the real Kevin Nash. It is what it is. Bret should not immediately take... Bret is the best wrestler in the company. I don't know about the last two. I agree with Hakushi because Hakushi and Bret's feud was the best part of Hakushi's run in WWE. Far none. Far none. Hakushi's run in WWE was as good as it was because of Bret Hart. I mean, I would say that if you wanted a bridge feud with Jean-Pierre Lafitte, a minor feud, a light feud, a light-hearted thing that, if Hakushi's... Let's put it this way. If Hakushi's feud, if the feud with Hakushi is, so serious and so, tense and raw that you want something more comedic and less, tense and less raw, that you can shift to Jean Pierre Lafitte. Go for it. Go for it. But like like Jean Pierre Lafitte, in my opinion, the feud was basically Brett that Jean Pierre was stealing Brett's identity. And then by the end of the year, like in real life, Brett feuded with Bob Backlund. Then after Bob Backlund, he went into a feud with he finished his feud with Jerry Lawler, the one that never finished in 1993. I think that could have been what was plugged in first. Like basically finish the feud with Lawler first, but because it seems to me what I'm looking at is a part of the feud was Isaac Yankem, a part of the feud was Hakushi. I think you stick with that, but you let the blow off be Bret Hart versus Lawler at SummerSlam. Like you flip flop Isaac Yankem and Bret Hart, which was at SummerSlam, and you have the blow off be with them. The only reason why I think I'd shy away from Jean Pierre Lafitte being such a long, lengthy feud is because you just like if you keep the Kiss My Foot match as the blow off, right? Then you go from serious with Hakushi to comedic with Lawler to comedic with Jean Pierre Lafitte that you need. I think that's why they said about Owen that you go back to something tense. But I just think that it being a year between when they fought at SummerSlam and then revisiting the feud even briefly, it would be a little too soon, in my opinion. I think maybe you save that for the Royal Rumble in 1996, where they interact briefly in the Royal Rumble, or they face off briefly in the Royal Rumble, but that is if Brett is not the world champion at that time. You know what I mean? But I agree that Brett becomes the work rate anchor of Raw. Let's just we'll put the pin in there and say that Bret Hart, that it's Hakushi, Lawler, Jean Pierre Lafitte. Shawn Michaels Ascension, that's what 1995 was all about. It was all about Shawn Michaels ascending and going back for a second chance. And when was Shawn going to be the world champion? Instead of being attached to goofy comedy and sidetracked with Sid immediately, Shawn becomes cockier, more vicious. So basically, ChatGPT is pointing that Shawn should turn heel in 1995, which I think would bring a different layer if we still go with Brett versus Shawn in the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12. I think it would bring a different layer if by then, instead of doing the boyhood dream angle and trying to make Shawn a babyface, and have it be babyface, you maybe shoot to have Shawn be the one who turns on Sid instead of Sid being the one who turns on Shawn, and maybe if you do that soon enough, you could lead to well, this is saying that Shawn turned from flashy heel to cool tweener. I'm saying maybe have Shawn um, maybe have Shawn turn heel officially, and then by WrestleMania, maybe he'd be ready to turn babyface organically. Like basically what I'm saying is do what ChatGPT is saying, but draw it out a little more. I mean, honestly, what they're suggesting with Razor is um, that is basically what Razor became. So, I mean, it is what it is. I did, however, give WW. I did give ChatGPT one limitation. The one limitation is WCW talent is off limits, meaning anybody that is under WCW contract, a WCW contract at this particular moment in time is no bueno. So their first acquisition would to expand the WWE roster is, or freshen up the WWE roster is, bringing Mick Foley in the summer of '95 instead of '96, which I believe Mick would debut as Mankind after WrestleMania in 1996. Not but they say don't bring him in as Mankind yet. Introduce him as a disturbing bounty hunter character managed by Ted DiBiase. A hybrid of Cactus Jack and early Mankind, he instantly gives the roster credibility. I actually don't hate that idea. Mick, Mick being, and then maybe him being dumped by DiBiase is what morphs him into Mankind. Like him being abandoned by the person, you know, him being abandoned is what morphs him into a darker version of Mankind. The biggest move is still recruiting Steve Austin. Austin was fired in late '95 by WCW, so by fall, DiBiase recruits him. Oh, that's interesting. That is also interesting. Um, Instead of the ringmaster, I kind of agree with that. Keep him as Stunning Steve. I know in WECW he was what, superstar Steve Austin. Still a cocky, dangerous, cocky, dangerous, and serious. So you don't have to drop the what is he type of deal when it comes to being the ringmaster. And for whatever reason, ChatGPT is having everybody be managed by Ted DiBiase. I like this idea of Brian Pillman teases because of Pillman. It still allows Pillman to go to ECW, and it still brings up the question of ECW's placement at within WWE at King of the Ring 1995. I would even say that maybe um, I would even say that maybe Pillman so realistically Pillman is off limits, and I do like this idea of teasing people like Pillman coming in, but Pillman does not leave WCW until February of 1996. So, unfortunately, Pillman is off limits. But in 1995, Pillman is off limits. But um, I did give the prompt to ChatGPT to look for, go from WrestleMania the night after WrestleMania 11 to WrestleMania 12. So technically, once it happens, it could be on the road to WrestleMania where they start teasing Pillman. But now we look to King of the Ring 1995. The quarterfinals being Shawn defeating Kama, Brett defeats Hakushi, Razor defeats Jeff Jarrett, Owen defeats the Bulldog, Shawn defeats Brett. I don't necessarily know about this because I think if anything, it should be flip flopped, where maybe by this point, Hakushi's starting to show babyface tendencies and wants to cut ties with Jerry Lawler, so Lawler is not with Hakushi when Hakushi faces Owen Hart in his quarterfinal match. Brett could face the Bulldog instead, because then that would prompt Michaels versus Hitman in the finals of the King of the Ring tournament, instead of Brett versus Shawn in the semis. Because if Shawn is portraying a sort of heel, I would rather him not fight Brett, or not fight somebody who I look at as one of the top heels in the company in 1995, in Owen Hart, in the finals. Unless we're starting to slowly turn Shawn babyface, but I think SummerSlam would be more around the time to turn him babyface. But I also think that if he defeats Brett in the finals and wins the King of the Ring, beating the guy who's a previous King of the Ring winner, which I know Owen is too, but like I said, it just doesn't fit babyface heel, and I think it would mean more if Brett versus Shawn happened in the finals as opposed to the semis. But I do agree that Shawn winning, it creates a true rising star, it gives Shawn legitimacy, it makes the King of the Ring more important, and it gives Diesel a worthy SummerSlam opponent, and not only that, it's a rematch from WrestleMania. It gives Shawn a second chance before WrestleMania. It gives Shawn a second chance before WrestleMania 96, and it doesn't leave your hands tied where Shawn has to win the 96 Rumble also. Because the story was in the 95 Rumble with Shawn being one to the end. He was the Iron Man. You know what I mean? I'm not just saying I hated the way they did it in 96. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it creates the possibility of someone new winning the 96 Rumble. You know what I mean? But with that being said, I'm already at 24 minutes, so I'm going to split this into two, and part two will tell the story of SummerSlam 95, where it's Shawn Michaels versus Diesel for the title instead of Mabel. That already sounds better. But either way, let me know down in the comment section below what you think of this so far from ChatGPT. How good did they do? How bad did they do? What else would you want to see in the future from ChatGPT? Let me know down in the comment section below, or show me you're enjoying this type of thing by steamrolling that view count and getting us back over 10 views, and I will keep giving you more unique content just like this. But with that being said, I will see you in the next one.